Record your guitar.
Hello, this video is the first in a series where we actually assemble a custom guitar from scratch, and in the first part here we aim to get as far into a dry build, if you like, of having the neck and body fit together, getting the bridge on, getting everything lined up, fitting the machine heads and getting a set of strings on there just to make sure we've got a guitar before we start doing anything about finishing or electrics. Enjoy! Okay, step one in putting our custom guitar together is going to get the neck to fit the body. There is a problem though, which is they don't fit. Fortunately the neck is slightly bigger than the pocket in the body, so all we've got to do is cut a little off and it should fit. Having said that, the contour at the end of this neck isn't authentic to say a Fender licensed one. You'll see it hasn't actually, don't know if you can see that, it hasn't actually got that much curve on it compared to the real thing, so it's neither Strat nor Tele at the moment. So I'm going to change this first so that it is as per the Fender spec. The reason being that if later on I decide it's not that great a neck and that it's very pretty but not that great a player, I have the option of swapping it out for a Fender spec one, and I won't have ruined the body, or if not ruined then made it only suitable for this particular neck. So I'll be straight with you, I bought this one on eBay because it looks pretty, but whether it plays any good or not we don't know until we've got the thing together, so I may end up yet having to refret it or even just chop it out for another one. We'll see, but let's assume for the moment that it is going to go together, this neck, this body, and therefore I need to work on this neck in order to get it to fit. Right, what I've done here is I've clamped the authentic profile neck to the one that's a bit too square at the corners, and now I'm going to mark the correct profile by sort of etching an outline using this needle file. And you might be thinking, well, why doesn't he use a pencil or something? And the answer is, I want to create a mark of the outline that isn't going to come off very easily, so as I'm filing I don't lose my reference. Okay, that should do it. It's not a very dramatic difference, but it's the difference between a good fit and no fit really, so I can take the clamp off and hopefully, yeah, the marks are still there, so that will let me get going with that. Those of you who've watched my videos before will know that I love masking tape, and this job's no exception. I've put masking tape on the back of the overhang of the fingerboard so that I don't damage it while I'm filing. Okay, it probably wouldn't notice once it's fitted to the body, but let's see if we can get it right, huh? I'm probably going to have to move this clamp a few times, but basically I'm going to follow around the contour I've etched into the heel of the neck, and when the file gets down to my marks then I should be about right, but I'll check it again at that point against the actual neck I'm using as a reference. Okay, well, sometime later and a lot of filing, we're getting very close to the desired profile. One thing I would warn you is the difficulty is in keeping the file following that nicely defined right angle cut, so that you don't end up with some sort of nasty rounded profile here, because you don't want that. What I suggest you do is keep control of the file by keeping your finger behind it like this, and then, if you like, reference this curve you're creating to the existing contour that was machine cut, and that should stop you going off at an angle and then sort of like taking too much off the top here and not enough at the bottom, or vice versa, or as I said, you know, ended up with a kind of rounded, slightly messy effect at the end. I've dispensed at this stage with the clamp because I'm only taking off small amounts now, and it's easy enough to keep my hand on the back of the work I'm not really going at this very aggressively at all. It's more a question of finessing what I've got here rather than taking off vast amounts of wood at this stage. Another way of assessing how accurately you've done this is to mate up the correctly profiled neck and the one you're working on and just run your finger over it, yeah? Because by eye, the one I've cut looks pretty close, but actually if I run my fingers over it, it becomes obvious that here my one's a bit sort of sticking out, so the overall curve of this on the correct Fender license one is greater than the version I've created so far, which you can see is a wee bit flatter, so I need to keep cutting. But the trick to this is cut a little, compare, or as they used to say, measure twice, cut once. Okay, more filing has taken place, and now using my fingertip test, I say they're pretty damn close, so I'm going to go with that. I want everything on my new guitar to line up really precisely, and I want the neck pocket to really fit well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit this here fine Wilkinson Tele style bridge, so I'll be drilling the holes for that in a minute. Then I'll put a straight edge up against each side of the bridge, and I can draw two lines which will then allow me to mark a centre line, which means I can work from the centre outwards and make sure that whatever I cut out of this pocket of the body is going to be absolutely symmetrical, absolutely lined up with the bridge and the pickups. So it'll be a good pro job, we hope. There's always more than one way of doing these jobs, but what I've done is I've put a matchstick in each of the E-string holes, which holds the bridge plate very rigidly. Then I can mark around the 4 screw holes that are going to fix this in place using a ballpoint pen. I realised somewhat late in the day that the string holes aren't in exactly the right place. We're only talking about, say, 0.5 millimetre, and in terms of the strings going through the plate it's not immensely significant. But what it did mean was if I'd line this plate up exactly to the string holes, it would be sort of like this. It would be quite a way off. So I had a bit of an adjust of the whole position so that the bridge plate is lining up correctly with the neck. So now I can mark 2 lines here, which should then allow me to describe the centre line, and then I know exactly where I should be taking wood off the neck pocket and where I should be leaving well alone. Now I've got the bridge in the right place. The difference between this side and this side in terms of position is really nothing significant, I wouldn't say. And equally, the difference between the size of the neck and the size of the neck pocket is what, 0.5 mil or something like that. So rather than going at it with a set of chisels, I'm pleased to say I think I can file that off with the flat file. Those of you who saw the making of the Modocaster videos will know how the next bit goes, because basically I'm going to mask up the bottom of the neck pocket so that there's no accidental damage to that while I'm filing the 2 sides here to get the new, I was going to say the new neck, it's a new guitar, to get the neck to fit. I know I keep banging on about masking tape, but the thing is masking tape costs pennies and everything else costs pounds and pounds and pounds. So it's just worth using plenty of it because it saves so much grief and disappointment. I know myself, you know, the feeling of if you slip with a drill or a screwdriver or a file and you do some damage to your instrument, and it's really quite heartbreaking. So just with a bit of prep, you know, you can make these accidents a lot harder to happen. It's all been going quite well, but I suddenly realised my back's killing me, so rather than stand up and use my weight to hold the work, I've clamped the body to the bench and start and do the job sitting down, I've got to say it's an awful lot more comfortable. It's worth taking your time, it really is. And I've got to the point now where this socket will almost take the neck, but I'm not going to force it because that might split the wood. But I'm pleased to say, even though I'm only using a file, by being careful about keeping it in one plane, I'm getting an edge to this that's so sharp I could literally cut my fingers on it. I'm getting to the point where I'm very close to having cut the pocket, and I can slide the neck in somewhat, not all the way down, and I'm not going to force it, but I can get it in enough to start to measure or gauge how well aligned it is. And what I'm finding is if I'm going to cut any more off, it wants to be with a view to getting the neck to tilt slightly that way. In other words, at the moment we'd have the bass string probably hanging off the low E, I think. I mean, there's not much in it, it's pretty close, but if I'm going to cut more off, I need to know that a bit wants to come off the treble side, and then right at the end of the heel on the bass side, so that the neck will just tilt. I mean, we're talking fractions of a millimetre, but checking as you go is a really good idea. I'm not too ashamed of this, to be honest. Seeing as it took me a few sweaty hours on a very hot day with some files, it didn't come easy, but I think it's a pretty good fit, if I'm honest. So should be able to, yeah, there you go. There's no bolts in the back yet, but I can pick it up and it stays in. Okay, we're now at the point where the neck fits the body and we need to drill the neck. I've got the two parts clamped together. It's a good tight fit, so I know the neck's not going to wander out of position. I don't have a bench drill, probably neither do you, but it's not the end of the world. The body is pre-drilled, so it's got 4 holes in it. Unfortunately, those holes are the size that the holes in the neck need to be. So providing I stick to about an 1/8 inch drill, because these holes are pre-drilled at the factory, my holes into the neck will go in straight. Then I can over drill the holes in the body so that the screws don't catch the sides as they go in, and then I can put the plate and screws in, so it should be fairly straightforward. The only thing I'd warn you is check before you start drilling anything that can you see that the length of the screw and the length of the bit that I've got out of the chuck are the same, because I certainly don't want to be drilling through my nice new neck straight through the fingerboard. That would be really bad news. If you find there's too much drill coming out of the chuck and you want to be sure not to drill too deep, bit of masking tape wrapped around the same direction of rotation as the drill, and you've got yourself an end stop to stop any accidents. Anyway, here goes. Now I'm going to drill, or rather over drill, the 4 body holes so that the screws are a firm fit in the holes, but they don't actually bite into the wood, because we want it to clear through the body wood and then bite into the neck wood. Otherwise the screws will actually tend, or bolts to use Fender parlance, will actually tend to pull the neck and body apart as they're going in, which is not what we want at all. Notice this time my drill size is what, 11/64 of an inch, and I've actually put some masking tape on here to form a stop, so I don't go any further than just through the body. Because I've got the stop, I don't have to take the neck off, because there's no danger of me going through into the neck, and so I can get this job done quite efficiently. Now you see those screws will just go through the holes of the body, so they're not ripping the sides of the body, they're just keeping it in place. Okay, if I put these 2 back screws in loosely, and then I can put the other 2 screws in and get this thing together. There is one major reason this guitar isn't going to work at the moment, and that's because it's got no machine heads. So that's my next task. Now these machine heads, like pretty much all the hardware going on with this guitar, are from Trev Wilkinson, who I honestly think is designing, making some of the best hardware out there at the moment, but the only thing he doesn't seem to be able to do is charge really stupid prices, so good on you, Trev. But these machine heads have two little lugs on the back, which actually makes fitting them quite quick and also accurate, because those two lugs stop the machine head from sliding about. But the issue is this: the headstock is drilled, but it doesn't have the holes for the little lugs that the machine heads need to go into. Now it'd be quite easy just to drill the two holes for each machine head, but if we didn't think it through, then there's a chance that the machine heads are sort of, you know, not very well lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in place, use the nut that goes the other side to pull each machine head down, check that they're straight with a rule. If they are correctly positioned, I'll tighten them a wee bit more, and what will happen is the lugs will actually just indent the wood, and then I can take the machine heads off, drill the holes to those dents, and they should all line up nice and straight. I'm doing my best to keep these machine heads in line. I'm just tightening them up so they're hard against the wood, and they're going to make those important indentations for me. Obviously I don't want to over tighten these, because I don't want to damage the machine heads or string. I don't know how well you can see this, but my idea worked. There's 1, 2, 1, 2, all these indents up here, they're pretty firm, pretty specific. So now what I need to do is drill them. The lugs on the machine heads are actually quite shallow, and I so do not want to go straight through the face of my fancy guitar neck that I've put a substantial amount of masking tape, so there's only the tiny bit of the tip sticking out, and that isn't going to go through the thickness of the headstock. Time to be drilling, but very carefully. A drill that's got this kind of speed control gear is always better than one that's only on or off, because it gives you that much more control. Fortunately, the little dents that have been left are working like centre punch holes. I've tightened all these up, and everything seems about the way I hoped it would be, and it's starting to look more like a guitar, isn't it? At the moment what I'm doing is basically a dry build, in that before I go spraying the body I want to make sure that the thing's going to play right, and everything's going to work. So really the next thing to do is I think I'll string it up. The only thing that's stopping me is that this first string slot in the nut is cut really badly, so I'm going to use this here X-Acto knife to cut it a bit better. Then when I've strung it up, I'll, you know, attend to the nut in some more detail. For those of you in the UK, the X-Acto knife, depending where you go, comes in at about £6 to £10, but they're actually quite hard to find. Those of you who are based in North America will find an X-Acto knife a lot easier to locate, but it's the best thing really that I know of for cutting the unwound strings, particularly the first and second. After that you need nut files. Now I'm just going to improve this slot a bit because it really is quite gross. So we've got this far. Neck and body and bridge, machine heads all lined up, strings on, so we can test this thing out before we go any further with it. At this point I thought I'd like to play you The Claw by Jerry Donahue. As I said, I'd like to, but there you go.